It's the countdown to the World Cup, and North Texas is about to take the world stage. 9 major matches played at the iconic AT&T Stadium. Thousands of fans watching.
The Dutch fans, the Brazilian fans, German fans.
Meet the man who brought the World Cup to North Texas.
It's 9 Super Bowls. The economic impact in Dallas-Fort Worth will be $2.4 billion.
We're one-on-one with Dan Hunt. Join us right now as we talk all things World Cup. Well, for the first time in over 3 decades, the World Cup returns to the United States. 16 cities across all of North America, United States, Canada, and Mexico get to host games. 11 cities here in the U.S., one of which, of course, being
right here,
DFW. We are so excited for games to take place when the 2026 World Cup kicks off. This is Paul Livingood, our what I call in-resident soccer expert. I'm Michelle Montaigne. We will be counting you down to the 2026 World Cup. And Paul, I know that you know more about soccer than anyone that I know, but talk about how you first got interested in the game and why you love it so much.
I mean, I've been watching soccer, internationally ever since I was little, but really got into covering the game when I was down in Austin, covered Austin FC coming up. And so covered the Austin FC team down there. Been covering FC Dallas and all the soccer stuff. Dallas Trinity, I see you're wearing the scarf there for the Trinity.
Gotta represent.
There you go. But yeah, I've been covering soccer for probably the last 6 or 7 years professionally, and I just love it. So I'm super excited that the World Cup is coming.
Super excited. Who else is super excited is one of the guys who helped get it here, and that would be FC Dallas owner Dan Hunt. He has been one of the biggest drivers of getting the World Cup back to the United States, and we actually were fortunate enough to get to sit down with him for almost an hour and talk all things World Cup. But first, here's a little refresher on who Dan Hunt is. He's been the president of FC Dallas since 2014. He serves on Major League Soccer's Board of Governors, and he's a member of the Hunt family, who owns the NFL's Kansas City Chiefs. Dan Hunt chaired the committee that made the bid to bring the World Cup to North Texas. His dad, Lamar Hunt, helped bring the World Cup to Dallas in 1994. 6 games were played here then. When you think about what stands out to you from our conversation with Dan, what is the most memorable part of that interview?
Dan Hunt is a wealth of knowledge on anything soccer, World Cup, club, obviously he owns FC Dallas. But I mean, he's grown up, since he was a little kid. He was a ball boy in 1994. And so he mentioned that his dad brought it here last time in 1994, and now full circle moment, he gets to bring it here as an adult himself. And he was just very thrilled to, kind of lead that charge. You get Dan talking about soccer, and he's a chatterbox.
He goes. And one of the first things he told us actually was the impact that he saw firsthand from that 1994 World Cup and how much he expects the 2026 one to have just as big of an impact.
My journey actually goes all the way back to 1986 with the World Cup in Mexico. That was my first one. I've been to every one since. And what's really cool about the World Cup, obviously we just had Qatar in 2022 and the first Winter World Cup, was that each country, or we've had dual country bids like Japan and South Korea in 2002, and now we have a tri-country bid with the United States, Mexico, and Canada. You get this flavor of these countries, and really the citizens really put on a show and show off their country. It's something they're so proud of, and I just think there have been so many incredible moments. As I think about what's my favorite moment, I'm not even sure I have a favorite moment. The 90 World Cup was really special for me though, because I got 35 days of my parents in Italy, which is a country they knew really well. We saw 22 matches, and most importantly, I just got to be with my mom and dad. And this is prior to a lot of technology, and just got to enjoy them. And I think back as how much fun that was, but 94 was huge. My dad was so excited to have it here in Dallas. He was the host of the chairman of the Dallas bid, and to bring the International Broadcast Center here. So I didn't really understand the context at the time. I was in high school of what the International Broadcast Center, what it meant. And that's really where the storytelling of World Cup takes place. And we have the International Broadcast Center here in 2026, and it'll broadcast to almost 200 countries. And so we'll have more drama than any other market with all these events and games and everything else going on, but the actual storytelling will take place here too, which, again, that's why I say that Dallas-Fort Worth is really the epicenter of World Cup 2026.
Now, we're lucky to get to host part of the biggest ever World Cup in the fact that this is the first time ever that 3 countries will be host countries. It's bigger in terms of the number of teams. There are 48 teams in the field. That's 16 more than last year. It's almost double what we were used to in all of the tournaments prior. You think about the differences that we're going to get to witness firsthand, and what really jumps out to you?
Just the sheer massive, field.
Yeah.
Before the group stage, only 16 teams advanced. Now they'll have 32. Before,
double.
Literally the entire field of what is in past World Cups will now make it to the knockout stage. And so, the first time it's ever been hosted by 3 countries together. The only other time was the 2 with South Korea and Japan, obviously. But yeah, just the massive, the biggest tournament in the world is coming here. So, I mean, that's what I take away from it.
Yeah, differences, of course, in what we're going to watch tactically and like on the field, but of course differences in the fact that every World Cup features a different culture. And Dan touched on the differences that he got to see from Brazil to South Korea and even beyond.
I'll pick on '94 World Cup because it's our reference point in this country. And we did a great job of capitalizing on it, right? Launched Major League Soccer. The professional soccer movement really pushed forward with other leagues. But it was such a novelty here in 1994, all across the United States. People didn't understand. I saw a statistic that recently said, I think less than 20% of people knew before the '94 World Cup that the World Cup was coming to the United States. Today, the number is over 90%, it's like 95% know that the World Cup is coming. But here in Dallas, we had one of the greatest matches ever played, which was the Holland-Brazil quarterfinal. Brazil wins the game 3-2 on the way to winning that World Cup. And so many people, even though they were new to soccer, naive, didn't understand, they went to that match at the Cotton Bowl and they knew they were seeing something special. Yeah. Because often I talk to people, and if I ask, hey, did you go to the '94 World Cup? Yes. And then it's, I got to see the Holland-Brazil game. So really the matches are what make the greatness of this. I mean, you can go back to '86 in Mexico, watching France beat Brazil, PKs in Guadalajara. It broke my heart. Not only did I wasn't feeling very well, and we were not allowed to sit in our seats that we had tickets for. There were some fans that were unwilling to move. And so my dad, who was non-confrontational, we got new seats, and we wound up behind the goal where they took the penalty kicks in '86. And I remember being very sad after watching Brazil lose, and they were probably the best team in that tournament. But you think about driving around in the countries, seeing things, the road trips with friends. I mean, in 2006, I had a bunch of my college buddies and a few guys I went to St. Mark's with here in Dallas, and we drove around Germany together in a minivan, and experienced the culture that way. And you think about France in '98 and walking the Champs-Élysées after France wins the finals, with whatever they said, 1 million people walking in that chaos. Cool things like the 2002 World Cup, where you got to see Japan and South Korea, again, a little bit of the same thing as US in '94. Soccer wasn't a novelty to them, but if you look at the effect of the 2002 World Cup on their teams, they both can point to that moment in time because that's what really kicked off the movement to have the success. The Japanese national team is a great team right now, and South Korea has a lot of talent, but you point back to that moment in time. So, all these special times, special memories, seeing Africa, going to Brazil in 2014 to see a World Cup, I mean, really in one of the cradles of soccer, and how crazy that country was. I'll tell you, seeing that match where Brazil lost to Germany 7-1, I've never experienced anything like that. I was devastated for the Brazilians, for the Brazilian fans, but you sort of take it in. And then, I got to be at the final in 22, seeing Messi lift the trophy. And I mean, it is. I have chills too thinking about it because, not always do the greatest or one of the greatest of all time get to lift that trophy, all right, especially in World Cups that are every 4 years. But if you think about how many amazing athletes play their entire career not winning a Super Bowl, not winning an MLS Cup, not winning, a World Series, or in hockey, winning, Stanley Cup playoffs, it happens, and it's a sad part of the career. And you had always wondered if it was going to pass him by, but by winning that, I think he passed Maradona, and the conversation is really, it's Pelé or Messi, and to get to see that greatness, and now that greatness plays in Major League Soccer.
And speaking of differences and firsts, last World Cup in 2022 was the first one ever held in the Middle East. The 2022 World Cup in Qatar featured so many exciting things for us to see as the game continues to grow in different areas of the world, but it also gave us a classic in the final. You have France, you have Argentina, you have Kylian Mbappe, you have Lionel Messi, you have extra time, you have PKs,
penalties,
everything,
all the drama.
And you think about the fact that everything led us to that pinnacle of the sport, and we get the best game of the entire tournament.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you remember?
I mean, just watching it was very high strung, very back and forth. There was times when you thought France was going to win. There's times you thought Argentina had it in the bag. And then ultimately it goes down to penalty kicks, probably the highest, drama that you can have in soccer. And then what comes from it is the GOAT finally gets the one title that he does not have, which is that coveted World Cup trophy.
France and Argentina giving all of the fans in attendance a memory that they will cherish forever. And the people who actually got to go to the first ever Middle Eastern World Cup also got to experience a culture that they may otherwise not have. And Dan Hunt talked about that, the culture experiences being something that everyone remembers from any World Cup that they get to go to.
With the history of the World Cup, I mean, the Brazilian fans, the Dutch fans, the passion that they bring, Argentina, the energy is unbelievable, and to share that, I mean, if you think about Germany right now too, and France, these are top teams. I actually think England may surprise some people. If you think about it, it'd be the 60-year anniversary of their last World Cup win, and they have so much talent. It just hasn't translated for them. So we'll see how it goes. But you bring those here in these markets. I mean, can you imagine Frisco, Texas painted orange with the Dutch? I think the citizens will love it, or the samba of the Brazilians here, or in other venues around the Metroplex. I don't know that people are ready for it, but I hope they embrace it. I hope they make friendships for it, and I hope that then it gives them an attachment to the game, and maybe from a tourist standpoint, then they go visit those countries. We still have friends from so many tournaments in different countries of random people that we met, and that's just part of the World Cup experience. I mean, I spent a lot of time recently with the Mavericks, with the Rangers, talking about how they capitalize on World Cup 2026, and the Rangers will obviously be the only one in season. And during that time, I told them, short of you guys winning a World Series, which they went and did a few months later, having games during World Cup so that you can have these international fans, that's going to grow your fan base. And, talking with the Mavs, well, how do we maximize World Cup, 2026? And I said, having camps for all these international fans that are in fantasy camps, adult fantasy camps, kids camps. I mean, that's how you build lifelong friends, because that might be their only exposure to the NBA, right? And especially in the baseball side, right? Because it's not nearly as global as basketball. Hockey is the same. Have these summer camps, have these get-togethers, educate people. I think it's so many opportunities for our local sports team to continue their global brand. Obviously, the Cowboys are a global brand, but they can do the same too, is introducing fans to football who this might be their only experience.
Well, there you heard it. Culture, one of the biggest perks of getting to experience a World Cup. And we know that in this country, sports culture is defined by
tailgating.
Dan Hunt talks tailgating after the break, but first, we give all of you a chance to answer some World Cup trivia, see how well you can do. hope you did well on trivia. Welcome back to the World Cup Countdown. That's Paul Livingood. I'm Michelle Montaigne. Now, Paul, we know that Dallas-Fort Worth is one of 11 American cities who's going to get to host World Cup games here in the U.S. And, of course, AT&T Stadium, used to huge events all the time. Of course, it's the home of America's team, the Dallas Cowboys. But do you feel like AT&T Stadium is ready for the World Cup stage?
I do, to a degree, because, I mean, you know, they host concerts, they host, you know, Cowboys games, they host international matches. Mexico plays there all the time. But I think the thing that they'll lean their hat on is they can host a lot of people with multiple events that they've done all at once. They've had like a Taylor Swift concert, you know, Rangers games all on the same day. And that's kind of like how it'll be equal in terms of the amount of people that'll be there. So they'll lean on that experience. And, you know, one of the things that with security that you want to look forward to is we talked about in Copa, when the final in Miami, they had massive security issues. And so I talked to Dan Hunt. It was kind of towards the end of our interview that you'll see. But I wanted to ask him specifically about what they were doing to prepare for security for the FIFA World Cup.
Well, the security is obviously a big issue, and what happened with Copa in Miami, I'm really sad, you know, that happened and the destruction there. And so World Cups are so different than even stuff like that, and line management. And you hate to see things like that happen, but it's a beware, cautionary tale, if you will, of what can happen. And so, you know, the perimeters of these stadiums are closed down in such a way that you really can control crowds. But it's going to cause us to spend more on security. And I know there's talk of federal funding on safety and security too. That's probably one of the biggest things out there. So the government is doing safety and security for the Olympics in 2028. And I think this is a really important cog to get that additional government funding for all of the markets in the U.S. Doing that. But there were a lot of learnings from that. A lot of memos were circulated, a lot of, I would say, staffing up opportunities, managing it. And so you see this occasionally around the world with games, and sadly people get hurt, and that's not what this, you know, that's not what we can have happen here. This is the United States. Our job is to be the very best at it, provide safe and secure environments for our fans. So we're on it, but it's a constant evolution of learning.
Now, Dan, obviously talking about the security preparations that have to go on ahead of something as big of a scale as the World Cup. But we also have to prepare for what really matters, the tailgating scene. It's something that he is expecting to really kind of highlight and emphasize to foreigners who aren't used to tailgating, at least not
in an American way
that we do it. We know everything is bigger in Texas. So the tailgating gonna fall right in line with that. Here's Dan Hunt on how he's expecting to really kind of showcase American sports culture to all of those that get to visit the great Lone Star State.
One of the biggest things that we need to prepare for World Cup 2026 is volunteers. It's 15,000 plus volunteers are needed. And you know, you have so many, again, parts and pieces that make this up. Obviously, you have human rights and transportation, and we have so many things we have to fulfill our promise, and I know we're going to do a great job. And what I'm excited about World Cup 2026 too is my other big hope. Women's World Cup 2031 is coming to the United States, and I want that final in Dallas-Fort Worth. I'm excited to have the men's semifinal, but I thought we had done a great job in our bid and thought we deserved to host the men's final. But when 2031 comes around, this is going to be an incredible market for those games, and hopefully we get to host the final. So I hope, you know, that, you know, inspires people, World Cup 2026, to make that big push on the Women's World Cup in 2031. But, you know, Dallas is ready. If you think about AT&T Stadium, the economic driver that it is, it's unbelievable. And, you know, we get to see it from an NFL side and also concert side. And so the business that thing will drive will be great. And working with the Jones family, they're good friends, they're partners of ours, and we have such a long working relationship with them. We do a number of things, Gold Cup. I know this is going to be a gigantic success. So I don't know that there's a lot we need to do, but again, volunteers would be a big one to start with. And, I get asked about this all the time, transportation.
Yeah.
Transportation. That's the one knock. And, at FIFA, we spent time talking to them back in 2021, and they, asked a lot of questions and said, guys, truthfully, this is a driving culture. And honestly, I really think we introduced the true idea of tailgating to them in our meetings at AT&T Stadium. And my brother Clark, who's done an awesome job with the Chiefs, is also the chairman of the Kansas City bid. And that's a driving culture, and the tailgating culture of Arrowhead is world famous. Yeah. And going through that explanation, saying, guys, we all have public transportation. It may not be what you're used to, but you have to understand this is just a culturally different market. But also, if you think about the experience and the revenue you can generate off that, that's going to be part of the American spin on World Cup 2026. We're bringing tailgating to the rest of the world, and they don't have the trucks to have tailgates, but we're going to teach them about it here.
Hey, just listen to the Ford commercial. It's American made, baby. But no, now that you say that, Houston's the same way. Dallas is the same way. It's basically that way everywhere other than the Northeast.
No, it's right. The Northeast there's more public transportation, maybe older cities, more condensed, compared to these other markets here. And you think about it, and again, it's each of our own spin on how we do this and how we're going to make it a success. But we had a big talk, and I said, guys, I think you're missing the boat here, because people will almost pay as much for their parking pass as they will for their tickets. And then I saw the light come on.
Tailgating always has a way of creating stories that are told the morning after.
Sometimes you don't remember them.
Exactly, the beauty of tailgating.
But some of you do.
Some you do. And those stories are always ones you want to remember.
Yeah, exactly.
Storylines coming out of the World Cup are some of the best parts of the biggest sporting event on earth. I know that you've watched every World Cup since you can remember watching.
Yeah.
What's one of your favorite memories?
One of my favorite ones, I remember when I was in college, me and my buddies, we watched Tim Howard. He had like a bajillion saves against Belgium. And that was just a very high strung. The United States ended up losing that game. But it's like, it's the moments with people around you that you kind of remember. And I know Dan talked to us about something that he remembered from one of his old World Cups.
And it's a story you won't want to miss. Check it out.
I promise you that sitting in the stadium around those fans and listening to them sing and chant and the passion, even if sometimes the play isn't perfect, and tournaments are always complicated just because of how you have to manage through them. But being part of that fandom, I promise you, it will inspire people to be fans of the game, because they're going to say, that was one of the coolest experiences. I mean, I think back to different times with all the Brazilian fans around, Argentinian fans, the Dutch. We picked up, a buddy of mine, we picked up some Dutch hitchhikers at a World Cup because they were going to the game, and they were just lined up at toll booths as we were driving, and we had a couple seats, and they had tickets. They're sitting there holding tickets, and they're like, we need a ride to the game. So we picked them up, and you just have those World Cup experiences. And the other thing about it is, people will fall in love with players and countries that they might not think. There are always the unicorns that come from World Cup, and they say, oh, I'm going to follow that player, right? It's the underdog story, the true American story. We love that, from underdog to superhero. And everybody likes to latch onto that. So I hope there'll be so many different avenues that touch people in their heart one way or another, that helps them love the game I love so much.
Never thought I'd hear a hitchhiking story from Dan Hunt. Paul Livingood.
No, me neither.
Well, as you know better than anybody, no country outside of the South American countries and the Europe countries have ever won it. Do you think that this is the year that ends?
No, I don't. I would love to say that the United States could go in and win it. They might make a run. You never know. But I think it's going to be another one of those South American countries or countries from Europe. It's going to be Argentina or Spain or England, Brazil. There's a handful in the top 10 that are literally all from those two continents. So sorry, I don't think that's going to happen this time around.
Well, just a matter of months until we find out if Paul's predictions are correct. We also luckily got to hear Dan Hunt's predictions on who he thinks might be bringing home the trophy this year. If you want to watch the entire full-length extended interview with
45 minutes
Hunt,
long.
that will be on WFA.
A lot.
You just have to search for it. We cannot thank him enough for his time. And I can tell you, we are not even close to breaking the surface of what we have in store for you as we count you down to the 2026 World Cup. One last reminder, that's Paul Livingood. I'm Michelle Montaigne saying thank you so much for joining us today, and we will see you very soon.